The rain had just started when I heard a gentle knock on my door, soft, almost hesitant, as if the person on the other side wasn't sure whether to disturb me. I opened it, and there they were, my two African neighbors, Kofi and Malik, both smiling with that familiar warmth I had grown used to. There was something about their presence, confident yet calm, strong yet soft, that always made my heart speed up just a little. They had been friendly since the day I moved in, helping me carry boxes, offering tools, sharing casual greetings in the hallway. But lately, their smiles felt deeper. Their eyes lingered for a moment longer than before. And for reasons I never admitted to myself, those little things stayed in my mind longer than they should have. Kofi stepped forward slightly, his voice rich and low as he said, "We were heading this way and thought to check in on you. Hope we're not interrupting anything." I shook my head quickly, maybe a little too quickly. No, you're fine. Come in. It's cold outside anyway." They stepped inside, bringing with them a strange mix of rain, warmth, and a quiet energy that filled my living room. I tried to ignore the flutter in my chest, but it was useless. As they sat down, I felt an odd awareness of every breath, every sound, every look. We started talking about simple things at first: weather, work, the neighborhood. Nothing unusual, but even those ordinary words felt different today. Every time either of them spoke, their voices seemed to settle into me, deeper than conversation usually goes. Malik asked about my day, and somehow, I found myself talking more than I usually do. Maybe it was the comfort they created, or maybe the way they listened, so genuinely, so attentively, like nothing else in the world mattered. I wasn't used to being listened to like that. At some point, one of them laughed at a small joke I made. I didn't even remember what it was, but the laugh, it wasn't just amusement. It was warm, appreciative, almost proud. And I felt it in places I didn't want to admit. I tried distracting myself by pouring them tea, but even that didn't help. When Kofi took the mug from my hand, his fingers brushed mine for the smallest second. It shouldn't have meant anything, but my breath caught. It was such a light touch, but it felt intentional, gentle, familiar. My heart reacted instantly, betraying me. I sat down again, trying to compose myself. But that's when the guilt pricked at me. I had someone I should be thinking about, someone whose trust I'd always protected. And yet here I was, aware of every movement these two men made, every shift in their seats, every time their eyes met mine. I kept telling myself it was harmless. They were just neighbors, friendly neighbors. But the truth was something else entirely, and I felt it clearly now. The rain grew heavier outside, a soft drumming against the windows, and it made the room feel quieter, more intimate. The kind of quiet where nothing hides. The kind where you can hear your own heartbeat too clearly. Malik leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, eyes studying me, not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a way that felt like he was seeing things I didn't say out loud. "You always seem so calm," he said softly. "But today, you look different. Something on your mind." I looked away for a second, afraid my face would reveal more than my words ever could. "Just a long week," I murmured. Kofi exchanged a look with him, one of those silent looks people share when they understand something deeper without speaking. It unsettled me, and yet, somehow, it pulled me in. "Sometimes," Kofi said gently, "the right company makes even a long week feel lighter." There was nothing inherently bold in the sentence, nothing inappropriate, but the way he said it, the way his voice softened around the words, it made warmth crawl up my neck. A quiet realization settled inside me, like a whisper I couldn't ignore. This moment meant something. This visit wasn't like the others. And deep down, I already knew that whatever was happening, whatever was quietly shifting between the three of us, it wasn't accidental. I didn't try to escape the feeling. I just let it linger. And that was the first sign that something inside me had already begun to change. Silence settled between us, not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that makes every small sound feel louder, the ticking of the clock, the soft hum of the rain, even the quiet rhythm of breathing. Kofi shifted slightly closer on the couch, not enough to make it obvious, but enough that I felt the warmth of his shoulder near mine. Malik sat across from us, leaning back, watching with a calmness that somehow made my pulse rise even more. I kept telling myself to relax, to think clearly, to remember the boundaries I should never cross. But everything about them, their presence, the gentleness, the way they made me feel seen, was breaking through those boundaries without even trying. Malik's voice was low when he asked, "Do you always spend weekends alone?" I nodded lightly. "Mostly." He tilted his head, his expression soft. "It must get lonely sometimes." Lonely. The word hit deeper than it should have. My relationship had been drifting, slowly, quietly, without big fights or drama. Just distance, routine, silence that had grown too familiar. But today, with these two men sitting here, that silence was replaced by something warm, something alive. Kofi's hand rested briefly on the couch beside me, and although it didn't touch me, it felt like it did. I was acutely aware of every inch between us, and how easy it would be to close it. "What about you two?" I asked, trying to distract myself. "Don't you have plans on weekends?" Malik smiled, soft and steady. "We enjoy simple things, good food, music, and good company." The last two words lingered in the air as if they were meant specifically for me. My heartbeat quickened again. Something was building, slowly, carefully, like a wave rising but not yet breaking. And they both felt it. I could see it in the way their eyes softened when they looked at me, the way their bodies relaxed, as if they were comfortable enough to be completely present. Kofi leaned back slightly, his voice more thoughtful now. "You know, you have a very calming energy. We always felt drawn to it." I didn't know what to say to that. Compliments were normal, but this one felt different. It felt personal, intentional, like he was saying something he had been thinking for a while. I felt warmth rise in my chest, and with it, something else, an ache I hadn't acknowledged in a long time. The desire to be wanted. Malik stood up for a moment, walked toward the window, and looked outside at the rain. He spoke without turning around. "Sometimes people come into your life unexpectedly," he said softly. "And they make you feel things you didn't realize you were missing." Quote. I felt the words settle inside me, deep and unsettling. Because he was right. And what I was missing, I was feeling now. He turned back toward me, his eyes gentle, not demanding anything, not pushing, just offering a moment of truth. And I couldn't look away. Kofi's fingers brushed mine again, another small, barely there touch, but this time he didn't pull back immediately. My breath caught again, and I didn't move my hand. I didn't want to. The room felt warm, almost intimate, and my confusion grew heavier by the second. I knew I shouldn't allow any of this. I knew where the line was. But emotionally, I had already crossed it. "You seem tense," Kofi murmured. "You don't have to be." His voice was steady, reassuring. I felt myself relax a little without even meaning to. And that scared me, because it felt too good. Malik returned to the couch, sitting a little closer this time. Not touching, just near enough that I felt surrounded by the quiet presence. Safe, warm, seen. "Can I ask you something?" Malik said gently. I nodded. "Are you happy?" The question hit harder than anything else. My throat tightened. I looked down at my hands, unable to give a simple yes or no. Because the truth was complicated. And the silence that followed was its own confession. The two of them didn't push. They didn't pry. They simply waited, giving me space to feel whatever I felt. And somehow, that made the guilt sharper, and the attraction stronger. "I don't know anymore," I finally whispered. Kofi exhaled softly, almost sympathetically. "It's okay to not know." Malik nodded. "But it's not okay to pretend you're fine when you're hurting." Their words wrapped around me, comforting and unsettling at the same time. The kind of truth you avoid until someone says it aloud for you. A moment passed, a long, quiet, charged moment. And then Kofi slowly reached for my hand again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I let his fingers curl gently around mine. Malik watched silently, a softness in his expression that made my heart flip. For the first time in a long while, I felt alive. And for the first time today, I realized I wasn't resisting anymore. Something inside me had already chosen a direction. Even if my mind hadn't admitted it yet, the room felt warmer than before, as if the rain outside had sealed the three of us into a quiet world of our own. Malik and Kofi didn't move, didn't rush, didn't push. They just sat there, one beside me, one in front of me, each of them watching with a calmness that made my heart feel both heavy and strangely safe at the same time. I could still feel Kofi's hand around mine, steady and warm, as if grounding me in the moment. Malik's eyes softened when he saw the uncertainty on my face, and instead of questioning it, he simply said, "You don't have to explain anything." Those words were a relief I didn't expect. For weeks, maybe months, I had been carrying emotions I didn't know how to express, trying to maintain something that felt more like a memory than a relationship. And here, in this room, with these two men who barely knew the details of my life, I felt understood. I took a slow breath. I didn't expect any of this, I admitted quietly. We didn't either, Kofi replied. But connections aren't planned, they just happen. There was something honest in the way he said it, something that felt sincere instead of flattering. I looked at him, then at Malik, and for the first time, I allowed myself to acknowledge what had been unfolding, step by step, glance by glance, moment by moment, since the day they stepped into my home. Malik leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Whatever you're feeling, it's valid, he said. You don't owe us anything. Not an explanation. Not a decision. Nothing. That gentleness made my chest tighten. Because part of me expected pressure, temptation, or even expectation. But what I found instead was patience. Quiet, steady, thoughtful patience. Kofi loosened his hold slightly, not letting go but giving me the space to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. I don't know what this means, I whispered. Malik nodded. You don't have to know right now. The rain outside softened into a lighter drizzle, and the sound filled the pauses in our conversation. I realized then how peaceful the room felt despite the storm inside my chest. After a moment, I shifted, and Kofi gently let go of my hand, not abruptly, but slowly, as if he didn't want me to feel any pressure. We don't want to complicate your life, he said softly. We just felt something. And we didn't want to pretend we didn't. Hearing that, spoken so humbly, so honestly, did something to me. I felt the truth of it. And instead of guilt swallowing me, something else rose up. Something warm. You didn't complicate anything, I said quietly. You just made me realize I've been ignoring myself for too long. Malik exhaled gently and offered a small, understanding smile. Sometimes it takes someone new to remind you what you deserve. The words slipped under my skin, not as temptation, but as comfort. I leaned back into the couch, letting the weight of the day settle. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't pretending. We stayed like that for a while, no talking, no touching, just breathing the same quiet air. A calm silence, a healing silence. Eventually, Kofi stood up. We should go, he murmured. You need time to think. And we want you to think clearly, not because we stayed too long. Malik got up too, giving me one last reassuring look. Whatever you decide, he said softly, we respect it. And we're here if you ever need someone to talk to. Their kindness made my throat tighten. It would have been easier if they were careless or pushy. But they weren't. They were gentle, considerate, real. As they walked toward the door, I felt something pull at me, an ache I couldn't name. Not regret, not confusion, just the weight of an unexpected connection that left its mark. Before they stepped out, Kofi turned back and said, take care of yourself. Truly. His voice lingered long after they left. When the door closed behind them, the house felt different, not empty, but changed. The air still held traces of their warmth, their calm, their sincerity. I sat quietly, letting everything wash over me, the guilt, the longing, the clarity. I knew things wouldn't be simple moving forward. I knew questions would come, decisions would follow, feelings would unfold. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something deep within me awaken, something honest, something alive. Sometimes, the biggest shifts in life don't begin with dramatic moments. Sometimes they begin with a knock on the door, a shared look, a gentle touch, and two strangers who see you more clearly than you've seen yourself in years. And as I listened to the rain fading outside, I realized one truth with quiet certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again.